Keep 100% of your claim. G4 Claims.
If you've been hurt in a road accident that wasn't your fault, you should really talk to G4 Claims first. Unlike road accident solicitors, we don't charge you for our services, which could see you better off. To keep 100% of your compensation, have a chat with Nicole and the team. You'll be glad you did. Search online for G4 Claims.
Keep 100% of your claim. G4 Claims.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Sellik, the Thunder podcast. It's episode 156. We're on Zoom like the good old days, and it's very fitting considering the circumstances we come to you today with. We're going to get tucked into everything, and we want to do it in a kind of shorter version today, so I'm not going to waffle for too long. But very, very quickly, before we begin, I'd like to give a big thank you to the Sports Social Network, who now have us on board as one of the podcasts on Spotify and all the digital platforms where you can listen to your podcasts. Huge shout out to them. So you might notice some wee differences here and there with the podcast as time goes on, but we're glad to be part of the family. Shout out to those guys. On that note, two of my esteemed guests in my company today starts with the man to my right-hand side on the podcast, but the left-hand side at Celtic Park last night, because you sit to the left of me, Kieran. It was a crock of shite we were fed to ourselves at last night at Celtic Park. But if you were to try and put that aside, how are you doing?
I mean, despite that weighing heavily on how I'm doing, I'm pretty all right, man. I mean, I don't know how long it's been since I was last on this, maybe like 6 weeks or something.
Oh, of course, this is like the first podcast you... How was Florida?
Florida was amazing. I didn't watch Celtic once when I was away. Brilliant. Even though we won the games when I was away. Just not even think about it, man.
You should go back just to try and get some good form on our side. It's good to have you on the podcast, though.
If the Celtic support want to send me back to Florida permanently, so we keep winning, then
we'll start one of the, like, you know, the right wing grifters start a GoFundMe after like a controversy. What we'll do is we'll start a GoFundMe to send you back to Florida. And on that note, a man down below us who's joining us again. Good to see you, Calum. How you doing? Yeah, I'm assuming that you're kind of in the same boat as Kieran. Celtic weighing on your mind. Are you trying to get through the day?
It's been pretty much, obviously, there's been a couple of messages and such for work-in folk, obviously just mentioning the result last night. Maybe some replies that I probably wouldn't put out there. It's all in good gesture. You try and take it in your stride, but yeah, it just seems to be a bit of a hassle at the moment.
Aye, a lot of hassle, and I mean, we as I said, we want to try and keep things concise today, but we've got a lot to cover from last night. We've of course got a cup final at the weekend, which is dominating the press over the last day or so, and will continue to dominate the press heading into the weekend. It feels like there's a lot of pressure now on the top of the new Celtic manager, and for this being what feels like really the first podcast of the Wilfred Nancy year, it's a shame that we do need to come on under such negative circumstances, but sadly, Kieran, that's where we are. Last night wasn't great for Celtic, and the reaction that's followed since has been nothing short of what you would expect. There are people who are already very, very nervous about the potential future with our new manager. And there's also then a side of the support who probably seen this coming anyway. He was thrown in a time and a situation that was never going to be ideal with a tough run of fixtures. Doesn't help that we lost to Hearts at the weekend. But last night was poor, wasn't it? Where do you stand right now? Where are your worries? And what are you thinking after last night's performance against Roma?
I mean, the main thing that I came away from that game thinking was, why does it take us going to 3 goals down to spark a reaction out of these players? We can talk all we want about Nancy and the pressure he's going to be under, but a good amount of the blame needs to lie with these players, because the effort that's being shown by some of them out there is not acceptable. The way some of them are half-arsing it about the park, some of them are just plain enough not good. Not good enough to play for Celtic. The first touches I was seeing last night, the misplaced passes, the general just not being able to win a second ball. It's the basics that Celtic have usually got easily under wraps are now failing us. And in these games, when you're facing opposition who obviously are better than you on paper in every department, you need to take it at the basics. You need to hope that they're not as up for it as you are. And you looked at the first half last night, not one of them was up for it.
No, and I think ever since the game finished last night, there's been more and more clips being shared around social media of maybe the biggest culprits of that sort of attitude last night, or that lack of quality that you mentioned. We are watching a team right now that just feels so below the standard required, Calum. And we'll get on to talking about the manager and maybe what he done wrong. But I don't know about you. I feel like last night would have been a disaster no matter who was in charge, because this group of players are just so poor. To me, they really lack quality in every area of the field. And when you talk about attacking presence, there feels like there's none. And as Kieran touched on, it took a full half of football for Celtic to wake it up moving forward last night. You wonder where it was the first half. And then you remember, what hope have you got with the likes of Yang, Taneke and Benjamin Nygren, who are so terrible? So I'll ask you kind of the same question. What are your initial thoughts after last night, in particular of the performance of the team?
I think even just to quickly touch on what you said at the start of that there, but it doesn't matter who was in the dugout for us last night. From the calibre of players that we have just now, we do not have the squad to go and play teams like Roma in Europe. And that's not taking anything. Roma are a fantastic team. And I'm not saying I expect Celtic to go toe-to-toe with the likes of Roma. But as you said, for it to take us to go 3-0 down, to go, oh, we're in a game of football, by the way, and then try and kick into it. There's certain players, more specifically the main three you touched on, probably highlighting the most Nygren. I think obviously we kind of touched on him within our group chat last night. How he managed to complete the first half is absolutely beyond me. It's so poor, and it's not the standard that's expected at Celtic. Nowhere near it.
3 players went off at half time, and I feel like there were 3 of the players who were definitely under the microscope for poor performances and in question whether or not they should be on the park. But Calum, Benjamin Nygren is somebody who we've spent £1.7 million on, and he's not the only, he's not the only person we can look to when we talk about these sorts of things. There are plenty of players in that park that you wonder how we spent money on, how they get in the game. But it just puts into the spotlight the absolute dross that we have spent our money on, and the results that have followed suit since. Like, it's all well and good saying that Nygren's maybe scored a couple of goals here and there, but this has become the level of performance that I think fans are expecting, and it just puts into perspective. Once again, I hate coming back to it, but February, we left the Allianz in Munich going, what a team, couple of additions away from being a real challenging side in Europe. And all of a sudden, we're struggling in the Europa League with players that are so far below the mark. Does that worry you as well heading into the January window, when you see players like Nygren on the park and you see players like him, and wonder if that's what our scouting department is picking up, is this actually going to get any better?
I think you can only kind of hope that the manager has his own players that obviously definitely would look to try and bring into the system, but then at the same time, it's not going to be all that easy for him to turn around and say, I want X, Y, Z, because we know ourselves with the board that we have, that's just going to get laughed at and just get told, well, look at them, but you'll have him instead, when it's players that are nowhere near it. And I don't know for how long, and I'm not expecting us, especially after obviously last summer we went out, we did spend a good bit of money. And I'm not saying I expect that to be the norm, but when we're then sharing out for folk like Nygren, and you're saying, yes, 1.7 million, but then you're like, but that's what 1.7 million gets you. A player at that level. Like, it sounds like a broken record, but that you need to spend money to get quality.
I mean, you imagine spending, say, 6.7 or 7.7. And I'm not saying Celtic need to go and sign a squad full of 7.7 or 8.7 million players or whatever. Of course, you've got to be realistic as well as ambitious. But, like, I mean, the difference would probably be if you go and spend $7.5 million a player, they're going to be significantly better than Benjamin Nygren. So I guess what you're saying is right. You're left with this situation where you've got players who are basically playing to the value you spend.
Yeah, definitely. And you just know fine now, there's going to be folk that throw it back at you the Arne Engels comment, we spent X amount on him, why is he not playing up to that price tag? But again, people need to remember, and I'm probably contradicting my own point, saying the players don't dictate their own price point, but at the same time, people would forget how raw Arne Engels still is. He's still a very young talent, and there's definitely something will then come of it, but I think we still need to be then seeing if Nygren's the kind of players that we're looking at in our midfield going forward, especially. you get what you pay for at that point. It's absolutely baffling.
Kieran, I mean, Negrin's taken a lot of stick, but there are players in that park last night, and we spoke about this leaving the stadium, some of them that I would be quite happy never seeing play for the club ever again, quite frankly.
I mean, especially if we're going to go into talk about the new managerial system that we're trying to play, you can tell that some players, especially in the position that we're playing, are not going to be able to fill that role moving forward. I mean, Maeda's obviously been talked as leaving in January, but after a performance like that last night, I don't think many fans are going to be too crestfallen when he does go, because the effort that was put in, granted, he's getting long balls fired up to him, that's no his game, but with the way he's played this season, what is his game? Because we were talking about last night, you said he had the longest purple patch in history at the game, and at the time I didn't want to believe it, but now you look back on it, it's true, like, because he had a freak season in which he turned into an absolute player that he's not capable of reaching the levels again, it seems.
I know a lot of people maybe talk about like the service around him and stuff like that, and obviously things maybe he's lost the likes of Kyogo that he had a partnership with, he's lost the likes of Kuhn that he's had a partnership with, but I'm watching people kick the ball to him last night and he just can't do the basics. And when you've got a team of players, Kieran, who can't do the basics, what hope have you got? I mean, you can't beat domestic sides if you can't do the basics right, let alone bloody Roma, you know?
No, it just felt, I mean, instantly last night, when you lose a goal that early on, you think, right, that's one of the nights. But even at 1-0, you're like, right, still a chance to get back into it. But the team just didn't seem to have that fight, that desire. They did not look up to it whatsoever. And that's the thing that concerned me the most, because it's not even a slight on the manager. This is the group of players that he's been handed. And he's got still a fair amount of fixtures to get through before he can sign a player. And we were touching on the January window earlier. We've been told time and time again, January is a notoriously difficult window to do business in. I don't know what people's level of expectation is going to be for January, but mine is in the gutter. I have no idea how many signings we'll make, how many outgoings there'll be, but it needs to improve tenfold, because Celtic are sleepwalking here.
They are sleepwalking. And do you know what? I think, like, you're talking about, you know, people in the system and stuff doing whatever wrong last night. I remember watching you. I thought you were going to have a heart attack if Kasper Schmeichel kicked one more body a Roma player last night. You were this away, man.
Last season, I was a big fan of him, but I don't know what's happened to him, honestly. Because I get that he's a professional football player. He can play the ball at somebody's feet, but he just tries one too many stupid things for my liking. And his distribution, which I praised last season, is now becoming an issue in my eyes. I don't know if he's got a dent in his confidence or what, but something needs to change. And this will be his last season at Celtic anyway. I don't see, unless he has a dramatic turnaround in form that earns him another year contract, I can see him. I don't know if he'll keep his starting spot to the end of the season.
No, and he's just one of the many different problems in the team. For me, like, Calum, we're going to talk about the system in a minute, because that is, and we're going to talk about the reaction to the manager as well. But just quickly before we get there, like, this is still a Celtic team that I feel is just fundamentally broken in many different ways. It's a team that still can't. We haven't been able to defend set pieces for the best part of a decade. I don't care what anybody says. We still can't defend set pieces. In fact, we lose a comical goal inside 6 minutes to really put, and that just kills any. I mean, the atmosphere was already dead last night, but that killed any sort of desire in that stadium, not just on the pitch, but within the stands as well. We still can't defend set pieces. We still can't hold up a ball. We still can't stop calamitous errors on European nights, and we can't pass a ball 5 yards. Like, we could talk as much about a system as we want, Calum, but I still feel like this is a Celtic team that is just fundamentally miles away from being able to put pieces together in order to be like, you watch other sides that are maybe on a par with us in the modern European game. And I'm not saying these clubs are the same as a stature-wise, but I see clubs like Ferencvaros playing in Europe in the Champions League in recent years. I remember when Sheriff Tiraspol were beating Real Madrid. I remember teams, Copenhagen, going on decent runs in the Champions League, watching them beat Manchester United and that. And they could do the basics right. They could defend set pieces. They could utilise set pieces. They could pass a ball 5 yards. And it feels like, and granted, I didn't think Wilfred Nancy was going to be able to change all of that in a week, but this squad just still can't do it.
It's baffling. I think probably the bigger one, as you said, see watching a professional football player that can't trap a ball into their feet.
Mm-hmm.
And I get it's absolutely baffling. Dyson had a good few of them last night. Was playing 5-10 yard passes, as you said. It was probably every single player in that part last night had at least one or two of them. It just wasn't happening for them. And you can't even say that it's down to you had an off night, just nothing was going for you. As you said, we weren't doing the basics right. If we win the first ball, if we didn't win the first ball, we couldn't win the second ball. Simple balls down channels, just nothing. And as you said, the amount of times Casper Schmeichel's sitting trying to ping long balls to Maeda when he's got folk like Indika and that right in behind him, he's not getting a turn on him at all. It's baffling to the fact that we just can't do simple things right. And it's not this kind of stuff that gets coached into you at like schoolboy level. And yet we're still struggling with time and time again in Europe. It's madness.
And amongst all of that, I think the two most obvious things, Kieran, which were still on show last night. We still can't beat a first man in a cross. We still can't put a ball across goal. It has to go blottering out to the stands. It has to go out for a throw-in or whatever. And we still can't take simple chances. We can't score goals to change games when we're gifted opportunities. We can't do these things when other teams can. And I know misses happen in football, but Hatate's throw-in goal misses an absolute stinker of an opportunity last night, which at the point could have got Celtic back into the game. You're then given a penalty and you miss that. It feels like at the minute, Kieran, whatever can go wrong for Celtic will go wrong.
Aye, it feels like, I mean, last year I thought we had broken the mould of classic Celtic in Europe, which you touched on the fact that teams like Ferencváros, that you watch them as Champions League, Copenhagen, you see them going toe to toe with these bigger teams, and I think, apart from the Dortmund hiding last year, I thought they turned a corner. In these games. It felt like you were doing these things right, and you were actually getting a bit of luck. That we're right back to square one. It feels in terms of just all these calamitous errors that are happening, can't finish or dinner in Europe. These are the things that cost you. And when you've not got a clinical striker up top that you can have as a focal point to actually put the ball in the net, then it works its way back up the pitch. You've got midfielders that can't pass the ball 5 yards, wingers that don't want to take a man on or put a cross into the box, defenders who, less said about some of them, the better. But it's just wholly frustrating to watch us in Europe. I mean, I'm sure we'll move on to the system, but it was the photo somebody took from the Lisbon Lion up all last night.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
In the midfield, might as well have been in single file. We struggled to get it out to the back last night, playing it out, it was coming back, nobody was willing to show for the ball. That's the main concern I've got, because if we're going to be a team that's playing it out to the back, we need to find a way to work it through such presses like we were getting after Roma last night.
Aye.
And to see that photo, the midfield four, not even a three, like, just so narrow up the middle of that pitch. What chance have you got?
So, listen, we'll transition into that now then. The system and the manager is under fire. And I'm going to start us off. I do feel sorry for Wilfried Nancy now. I do think that he himself will need to look at this and go, okay, I need to adapt now. It's the mark of a top manager. I'm sounding like a broken record saying it all week, but managers need to adapt to what they have. And he doesn't have the tools. It was a great phrase used by one of the viewers last night. It's like trying to put square pegs into circle holes. It's just not going to work until you have the tools required. Calum, in retrospect, is it now it's one of those situations where Wilfried Nancy has been probably a bit short-sighted in trying to use his system so early? And do you think that if he was allowed to revisit it come Hearts and last night, if he was to do it over again, he would maybe change that? Because he's coming under a lot of fire for what he's deployed so far.
Definitely, I think it's that phrase, like, hindsight's a wonderful thing. Like, you're always going to look back at it and say, maybe I shouldn't have went into it as early. But then realistically, the man's come in the middle of a season. You're not going to get chances to try and implement that in kind of dribs and drabs. And I'm not saying he should have just went gung-ho and just fired everything at it. But at the same time, in fact, it was Arnie Engels said after the game, he said, we're all professional football players. We've all played in different systems before, albeit when we were younger, you came through. You should know how to adapt within this. And again, I'm not saying you should pick it up straight away and we should be free-flowing football playing through that 3-4-2-1, sorry. But at the same time, yes, focus, it's very naive to just go in and throw it in, but realistically, what we've got St Mirren at the weekend, also I know came on to that, and then these next round of games, Dundee United, a team that you're going to be playing against, it's going to be sitting in, realistically.
Aye.
Aberdeen and then Livingston again, a team that's just going to be sitting in against you. So realistically, you need to try and get this in as quick as possible. So we are playing this quick attacking football that will try and create gaps within those. Because if we keep playing the same style of football, which it was under Rodgers, everybody's seen how boring it was. Everybody was sit to the back Tifa, playing safe between the back four. So you had to at some point try and go and implement it. And he's damned if he does, he's damned if he doesn't, it feels.
It's like if it worked last night, it would have been the masterclass, and obviously it didn't work, so that's now the story. To play devil's advocate to the whole the way we were last night, I guess it was always going to be tough no matter what, Roma. And I guess if you're maybe an apologist if you want to use that word, then you probably excuse him. I don't think you can fully excuse him, but I'm 100% with you, Cal. 100%. What you said a moment ago about players. Look, in retrospect, if he had the option to change it, 100%, I think he should have. I think he should maybe just stuck with a back four until whatever. But no, I'm with you. And what Arne Engel said, these are professionals. They should be able to do this. And the thing is, ultimately, it all comes back to this for me. The manager will be held accountable when the time is right and should already, to an extent, be held accountable. But using these players, my God almighty, what I hope, even if he had four at the back, I think we would have been just as bad last night. What happened to us in Mitch? Are people forgetting what happened in Denmark a few weeks ago? And this is, I think there's a real good case of revisionism going on right now. Not to try and bring down anything that Martin O'Neill done, because he deserves all the credit in the world for, most importantly, getting results. Because with this team, that's what mattered most. But it wasn't pretty. And I know people go, oh, look what happened in Feyenoord. Robin van Persie, who sat there in a press conference before the game talking about how Feyenoord are in apparently crisis. So we took advantage of a situation there, just like teams are taking advantage of us now. But in Denmark, when we had four at the back, we got just as bad a scudding as we did last night. So I don't think it's all entirely on a system. I think we just have a terrible group of players. And Kieran, the manager, is facing a little bit of early pressure that I hope he comes through. But in my opinion, I think that's something that he needs to face over a more extended period of time rather than 2 games.
Aye. I mean, I think when we talk about pressure, even when he got appointed, I had these conversations with people, whether it be in work, whenever they spoke about, I think we should have kept Martin O'Neill. This was before a game was played under Manchester, that I think we should have kept Martin O'Neill until, say, people were saying the cup final. I heard people saying January. I heard people saying the end of the season. I kept saying the same thing to them, that I would rather take the chance with something new, because realistically, how long, like, see the people that said after the final, but then after you get to the final, what's the point in hanging? And then next thing you know, you've got Martin O'Neill and a job until the end of the season. And I'm not saying he was going to get the result, but once again, that's not a long-term solution to anything. That's a very Celtic papering over the cracks thing. We spoke on this channel about whether you would want Ange back, and we all said we would probably want to move in a new direction. This is the scary thing about change. This is the first time Celtic have had a permanent manager put in the middle of the season since when, Ryan?
Since Louis Macari, I believe, and in the mid-90s.
Nobody's used to this, especially our age. Like, this is all new. We are used to seeing managers come in on the other side of the city mid-season permanently and struggle to adapt. We're now the ones having to do it. It's no nice. It's not going to be pretty. But I think people can't lose the heat after 1 or 2 games. I was appalled by what I watched last night. Same on Sunday. Even though there's wee glimmers of hope shining through in certain portions of the play, it was a tough watch. And he probably could have been a bit more pragmatic in his approach, but I think with the modern manager, they're all very headstrong in their philosophy. They're very, we said the word gung-ho, they're going to go for it. Like, I think if we sat back last night against Roma, we'd probably still get hammered. So I don't think he's going to completely alter his philosophy of football. Probably should have made some minor tweaks, granted, given how bad this squad of players is playing, but I don't know. I'm not going to crucify the guy for a couple of bad results at the start, but I'm sure as you're going to title this podcast, the pressure is obviously heaped on for Sunday on the final. But if you're going to be Celtic manager, you need to be used to this level of pressure.
Well, that's it. We as Celtic supporters are a fickle bunch, and we know that. We sadly have I say sadly, there's nothing sad about it. We have very high expectations, and sadly, sometimes that doesn't benefit certain people at certain times. And right now, it isn't benefiting Wilfred Nancy. Like, that's just the honest truth. Like, as much as I'm going to stick with him, and as much as I have patience, sadly, not every Celtic fan has that patience. The expectations and the reality at Celtic is that you win, and you win all the time. And I'm pretty sure those wins will start coming just when he has a better team, and when he has a better group of players, and when he's had longer than 6 days on the training ground with them. Funnily enough, we played Roma last night, and I said this to you jokingly at the game. Rome wasn't built in a day. And I know people can't live off these cheesy sayings and metaphors and all these different things. I know they can't. I know they can't do it. But sadly, that is the reality in sport and football and in life. If you expected the guy to come through and beat Roma 3-0 in his first European game, I don't know what to tell you, but your head is in fucking cloud cuckoo land. And I think there is just going to be an element of patience. That being said, the pressure is being heaped on for Sunday. And as I take this into the next segment, it's probably time to talk about that cup final. Where Wilfred Nancy really needs to win people over, I think. I think it's hard to tell right now. I don't know from your reading where you think the Celtic support as a whole lie. I feel like in my comment sections and stuff, I've had a really good amount of people that are like, come on, give the guy time, look at the shite he's had to work with. But on the flip side, there's been a really good amount saying this isn't going to work, cut the cord and stuff like that. Is Sunday, Kieran, a game which will maybe determine a majority in terms of opinion? Do you think come win or loss Sunday afternoon or Sunday evening, we will see the Celtic support, or at least the majority of the Celtic support, begin to form their opinions of the new manager?
I think so. Whilst anybody else looking in would think it's very premature, it's 3 big games. It was a top of the table clash, a European game and a cup final. There's no way that you can have the 3 games without it altering opinion or swaying public, like the actual sentiment of the support. So, whilst it might be a wee bit short-sighted, there's no beat around the bush, as you were saying. There's a lot of people that are already wanting them sacked and just saying, right, end this now before it gets out of hand. But you've got a lot of people that are on the side there, like, they maybe wanted to keep O'Neill for a wee bit longer. I was on that point of view. But these people are saying it's a results the only thing that matters. So I'll raise the question: if we go out on Sunday and we hang on for dear life against St Mirren and manage to win the game, win the cup, is results still all that matters, or will another poor performance, even if we win, alter people's perception of the manager?
For me, I mean, listen, under Martin O'Neill, we won games. And how many games did Martin O'Neill end up totally managing? Was it 8? Something like 8 games?
We won 7 out of 8. So.
7 out of 8. And 5 or 6 of those wins, I thought Celtic were really, really poor. And what mattered most was winning come the end. I think no matter what, and I'll let Calum answer this as well, I think no matter what, under these circumstances for this squad, and I don't want to lower any standards or expectations, and I don't want to lower what we should accept on a football pitch, but for the guy to come in inside his first 10 days and win a trophy by any way, I would just be happy with a win. I don't know about you, Cal.
No, definitely. I think definitely as a fan base, or sort of, when we've not won it, we've kind of looked at it and said, it's just a wee dirty trophy, and we've never bothered with it. But I think it would mean so much for him, one, coming in and getting that trophy under his belt. But two, I'm not saying it would sort of win a lot of folk over, but again, as Kim touched on, there's still going to be folk no matter what in our fan base. Even if we go and do win the first trophy of the season, there's still going to be moans. There's still going to be complaints. We could go out, and I feel for no, could go out and win a comfortable 2-3-0, but it'll still be folk, because it's folk that have made their mind up based on the first game or based on the first 2 games, and they're sticking to that mindset and they're sticking to their guns. I'm not saying you should change your mindset on the start. Everybody's entitled to their own mindset and their own opinion on it, but I don't feel like we should be writing the guy off after, as you said, 6 days. Like, it's absolutely baffling.
Kieran, I'll let you pick up where you were leaving off. What was your kind of own thoughts in regards to the question you were posing?
I mean, I agree with you in the sense that we do just need to win. He needs to get a win under his belt. Obviously, that win in itself would get him a trophy, the confidence that would breathe into him and hopefully the team as well, because I feel like this team needs reminding. There's obviously new faces in this team for the summer. It would be nice to try and bring them up to speed on this is what needs to happen. We need to win trophies, and hopefully it gives them a taste for it. But
there's some people just need reminded they're champions, Kieran. There's some players in that squad that need reminded they were a penalty shootout away for a treble.
Mm-hmm. And the drop off early in 2025 has been staggering. But I think just even looking to the game, even from a more tactical standpoint, I think he'll stick with a lot of the same players, and purely a necessity. I don't think he's got his hands tied behind his back in that regard. I do think there needs to be certainty, but frustratingly enough, I think we'll see a very similar team to what we have seen. But I think going in, you're looking at the way St Mirren are going to set up. They're going to set up very defensively, and rightfully so. They try and win a cup here. But I think we are going to be very fragile at the back. If we're committing everybody up and we're doing our usual passing it side to side, not being able to penetrate through the very low block, then we're going to struggle because they've got big guys that are more than happy to bully the likes of Austin Trusty. They'll use all the pace they've got to try and panic people like Liam Scales. It's one of the ones a couple of weeks ago, maybe licking your lips at it, but the past couple of games, it's definitely dented the confidence.
And interestingly enough, Calum, one of the games that Martin O'Neill did lead the Celtic side over was against St Mirren, albeit at St Mirren Park, an away game. And this is at Hampden, very different, very much bigger surface, much more Celtic fans in the stadium. Celtic have basically made Hampden a second home ground at this point. But if there's one thing that Wilfred Nancy can do, first of all, is pick up the phone and say, Martin, you played St Mirren a few weeks ago. Do you want to give me some pointers? And number two, all he has to do is examine that game to understand, right, what have I done wrong in my first two games? What did Celtic do wrong against St Mirren, and what can I change? For you, what needs to change against St Mirren at the weekend? And would you be fully confident if he was to go out with what he's tried against Hearts and Roma?
Part of you just kind of obviously want to say the main parts that need changed as the personnel, but there's only so much you can do with what's been handed to him. There is only so much you can do there. Then outside that, I think, but it sounds kind of circling back to the last game Martin O'Neill was in charge against Dundee. After the game, when he went out and they led the players around the pitch, just a kind of last lap of honour, one of the last things he said is those players are champions, that he needs to instill that mindset back into them. Because as you said, the players almost seem so fragile at a fact that it feels like, because of all the negativity in the press just now, and obviously most of it's guided towards the manager, but the players are receiving some stick to it as well, and rightly so, not to take anything from that, but he needs to get them back into this positive mindset, because we're trying to play positive football, we are playing forward, we're playing quick attacking football. It's not as if we're back to this sort of horseshoe style of football where we'll just keep it and go left to right. Getting the positivity back in the team is one thing, and I'm not don't want it to be like a Ted Lasso moment where you get believe above the changing room doors, but you just need to, like, there has to be something changing, because there is just far too much negativity around the club just now.
One of the big positives for the game last night that people are well, I say, I'm using the word positive as a fucking stretch here, right? But the guy did score. It was chopped off offside. For some reason, he was knee sliding, which I wasn't happy about. I'm not meant to sound the old guy, like it's fucking pathetic. But why knee sliding 3-0 down, son? But one of the things that people are talking about coming away from the game is how much better the Celtic played with Ike Iheanacho up front. Is that one of the changes you agree with? Would you change that for Sunday and put him up top?
Definitely. I think we've noticed it for there's been many chances between last night and then with Hearts. See if you get somebody that's an actual finisher and a normal striker that is used to playing that position and used to that pressure, you score those goals. You get that difference. You see it for me in actual from the games that he's played in. He scored a couple of goals here and there. Obviously, had a couple of fitness issues, but I think he has to be one of the starters for me.
Kieran, who else do you think needs to come out the team for Sunday? And if you can name them, who do you think replaces them? Would you maybe do the Nigrin for Paulo Bernardo like he done at half time? And would you do anything else beyond that?
I had done that just to make sure Negan and Disney start the game on Sunday. I mean, Tierney's another one that really is not filling you with an awful lot of confidence in him, but who comes in for him? That's the question.
So this all kind of comes back to the question about how much adapting. But I mean, both need to adapt. The players need to adapt. The manager needs to adapt. And I mean, I think we ended the game last night with a back three of Trusty, Scales, and Tony Ralston, which, like, fair enough if you think that's going to work. But if that came out, let's just talk about. Imagine that team sheet dropped on Sunday. It's not going to fill, especially the match going fans who are going to be there creating the atmosphere here. If that's the team that drops, if it was Colby Donovan outright, if it was potentially Yang out left, and then it was Ralston, Scales, and Trusty, people aren't going to be happiest for the minute go, are they?
That's the most like Celtic second round Champions League qualifier backline I've ever heard in my life.
It's pretty disgusting. It's just missing near Beaton, isn't it? It's just missing near Beaton and we'd be perfect. So to finish up on the Cup final preview, then I'm going to ask the quick Twitter questions to end this off. Generally speaking, just your final thoughts. Number one, Kieran, are you confident? And number two, if we fail to win, how do you think the reaction will fare in your opinion?
But like, how would I feel?
How would you feel? So how would you feel? I think we all know how the wider Celtic support would feel, but how would you try and leave the game? I don't want to talk, and we never do this in the podcast. Like, what if we lose? Unless it's a big European game, right? Well, what if we lose? But like, are you confident? And how would you feel if it is another loss?
No, I don't know if confident would be the word for it. I know that the expectations there that we need to go and win this, obviously, but my confidence for the game has been severely dented this week. I'm going in feeding things that I maybe wouldn't have thought about before, and I'm still hopeful that we will do it. I don't think it will be pretty by any means. I think it will be slim margins, but if we were to get beat, it raises a lot of questions. I think it's more the manner as well, because how will people react if he does change his system and we get beat that way? If he compromises on his principles,
it's never going to please everybody.
If he sticks to his guns when we get beat, then I think people will go apeshit, even more so than usual.
Good way to word it, mate. Good way to word it. Calum, how are you feeling at this moment, Friday evening? I would ask you how do you think you'll feel Sunday morning, but once we've had a drink in us, I'm pretty sure we'll all be up for it. So Friday evening, how are you feeling right now about the Cup final?
I think probably more based on last night's result as well. I think there is a couple of nerves just kind of sort of underlying there, but I think that more goes back to the previous game against St Mirren, where it was a long, hard game. Like usually if I'm sitting watching football, I always say it to my dad, see if there's a goal and a half, the half flies by. But that first half felt like 90 minutes alone.
Oh, it did.
We played them a couple of weeks ago in Paisley. So I think if we're looking at another result like that, we know it is going to be a challenge. And as Kieran touched on, you're playing at least 90 minutes of a low block where they'll only play for counters and set pieces. So it does still make me feel a wee bit, I'm not too sure. But then, as you said, come Sunday morning, a couple of drinks here, we're good to get a result. Everything changes.
Everything changes. And I just want Nancy to get this. I think, do you know what? Like, just my final thoughts before I move on to the few Twitter questions that we have. I just really want him to win it. I really want him to get that feeling of winning and that taste for what it's like to be a trophy-winning Celtic manager. And I'm not saying that if we win on Sunday, it's going to be roses and butterflies and everything else between now and January or between now and the end of the season. But I just think that it would do so much to just kind of steady the nerves that exist within the fans, to steady the nerves that probably exist within the team right now, and just to get him feeling a little bit more comfortable with the pressure that probably exists. Let's be real. Title of the podcast already there. The pressure is on. I don't think I'm not going to call for the guy's head if we lose on Sunday, but the pressure is on just for his own, I don't know, just his own belief in himself, I think. Just to have that belief in this squad and himself. So I just want him to win it. I want him to win it a lot. On that note, before I go into the questions, any final thoughts you just want to throw it there between the Perrys? I'll give you an opportunity to shout it out just in case I've missed anything.
I think I've got everything off my chest. The last
You think?
I'll remember something and I'll phone you up and send you a recording of me just screaming at the phone.
A voice note. Right, we have an even 6 questions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Kieran a question, give me a brief answer, keep it as short as you like, make it as long as you like, it's up to you. And then I'm going to do Calum, then I'm going to go back to Kieran. We're going to go through all 6 of them. There's another one there. There's a 7th as well that's basically like compare the Celtic team last night to the one playing in the COVID season because fuck me, it's eye-opening. And trust me, I don't need to go and look right now. I'm confident in saying that this team is worse without a shadow of a doubt. So thank you, Liam, for pointing it out. But nonetheless, right, Kieran, I'll start with you. Just punt Negrin in January. I've seen Shane Duffy and John Joe Kenny put in better shifts. He's a waster, says Decky. Are you at that point with Negrin?
I'm losing what little patience I've got left. Honestly, I mean, it's something I really thought was a real possibility. But I mean, he's got a new manager that came in. If he's not impressed in the next however many games for the window, it's not unrealistic to think he might get fucked out on loan or sold or what. So he needs to get his ideas bucked up.
If Rodgers was still the manager, I could see him going, no, I wanted this guy. I'm happy with this guy. Let's keep it. Nancy has no loyalty to him, so might just get rid of him. Calum, Aidan asks, do you think the players' attitude is a bigger problem than their talent? When O'Neill was in charge, they showed so much more fight, which has now disappeared. And is that the manager's fault? It seems like he can't motivate a number of them like Martin could.
At the end of the day, this is what these boys are paid to do. This is their job. Your attitude shouldn't play a factor in it. I know I touched on personally, I said you'd like to think that he can try and install that mindset again of what Martin O'Neill said. They're champions. They've won countless trophies, players within that team, for a reason. Because they're good football players, they should not be letting their attitude get in the way of their talent whatsoever.
No, 100%. And I think if I was to add something to that very quickly, not to hit out with all the Celtic da kind of quotes, their motivation and their attitude should come from playing for Celtic. At the end of the day, they're at a massive club. And that should be all the motivation they need. They need reminded by managers that you are good players, that you should be getting it, the 60,000 fans in the stadium should be doing that. When they walk out the tunnel, they should be going, right, I should be turning up for these fans. And some of them just quite simply aren't doing it. Kieran, Lennon asks, the timing of the manager's appointment has been incompetent, but it's no surprise from the crooks that run the club. They've put him in a position of immense pressure, and if he fails on Sunday, I feel like a large percentage of the support will turn their backs. Also, Negrin looks like Charlie Kirk, so I don't know if you want to add something onto that as well.
For the sake of my visa into the US, I'm not going to comment the last portion of that. But the first thing, I mean, we did touch on the fact, we touched on both points of that about how some fans weren't happy that O'Neill wasn't kept to a certain point. Even if you think about the fact that we waited so long between Rodgers resigning and Nancy actually coming in the door, that in itself is incompetency that you cannot. I mean, that's a 6-week break. I got Martin O'Neill in that worked it for the most part, but it's just harks back to the board yet again. And on his point about Sunday, it has put him in a very difficult position because I think Lennon's right. If we were to lose on Sunday, a large majority of the fans, that will be their minds made up completely. And that's quite sad, but hopefully it doesn't come to that.
Calum, Sideshow Bob asks, I'm not writing the manager off yet, but is Sunday, and I guess we've kind of touched on this to an extent, but is Sunday simply a must-win game?
No, definitely. But then, again, I think as we've kind of loosely touched on throughout the show, it's expected at Celtic. Every game is a must-win game. Obviously, there's a lot more pressure riding on it now because of the start that Nancy's had and Simpson coming in, but every game is a must-win game as Celtic manager and as Celtic players. I think they should all know that by now, considering the players that have been here for a lengthy period of time, or the players that have only been here for a short period of time since come in the summer. You'd like to think that's been drilled into them. So yeah, every game's still in that manner, let alone it just being a cup final.
I'm going to twist loose. This is your final question, Kieran, and I'm going to kind of twist it because the wording is very, very similar to the question I just asked you. So I'm going to kind of twist it. This isn't exactly what he's asking. So sorry, Lewis, but I'm going to just, for entertainment value and non-repetitive aspects. In retrospect, if you were making the decision again, if you were sat, and I hate to say this, but if you were Michael Nicholson, Kieran, if you were him and you were to make the decision again, you got a do-over, would you have kept Martin O'Neill on for the final, or would you stand by the decision?
It's a tough one because
It's
you've
tough.
seen how it's played out. But
Mhm.
I said it earlier. I need to stick to my guns. I was cheerleading for there to be a gamble taken, and this is the risky taking a gamble. But
I'm
I
with
don't
you.
know if I would change it.
I loved the idea of Martin O'Neill walking around Hampden with one last
Mhm.
trophy and riding off into the sunset, another trophy up, and just getting that sheer gratification factor out of it for both him and the fans. But I'm going to stay consistent. I'm with you. I wanted Nancy here sooner rather than later. I wanted a new manager here sooner rather than later. And if that meant that Martin O'Neill didn't get to manage the final, I was willing to die on that hill. And I'm still willing to die on that hill. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. It's not as if we could have seen any of this coming. But yeah, the timing. I think that we're all focusing, as you said. I'm not going to drag this. As you've already said, I think we're all focusing on the wrong thing. I think we're focusing on how long it took Celtic to actually get their affairs in order. No, we should be focused on how long it took Celtic to get their affairs in order, rather than when actually Wilfred Nancy ended up becoming manager, because that was just as bad for me. And finally, Calum, last question of the episode. 12 months ago, we were saying how Celtic were playing some of the best football in years. We still have a majority of those players. So what do you believe is the biggest reason for the downfall? For example, Kasper Schmeichel, Aidan Lynch asked that question. If you were to attribute it to one thing, do you think that's possible? Could you think of one main reason as to why the downfall's been so steep?
No, I think there's definitely a couple of different factors that plays into it. Solely one alone, yes, there's not much changes within the clientele around the team, but there's still been within changes. A lot of players they've dropped off, and they are of a good talent, but we've seen it with certain folk at last season as well. We can't say we were fantastic last season, because there was points where we did go in a bit of a downward run, it felt, and there was a lot of players that would have been beneficial from a wee kind of spell out the team.
Aye.
We've moved past that, but no, I think it's some players' egos, I feel like are playing for them. More so Kasper Schmeichel, if we're going to put a name to it. I don't get how, as Kieran said, he's got 6 months to realistically improve himself if he wants to
End
stay
his career
Celtic,
on a high.
realistically, because I don't see, if he keeps up with this, I don't see anybody else giving him any form of contract. I don't see us taking up an extension. I wouldn't really be opposed to seeing more of Sinisalo more this season, because from what we've seen, I've been more than pleased with him. Obviously, that's something we'll kind of look at more down the line in the season.
Well, there's a number of reasons. There is, and I think that we could spend another 45 minutes talking about them if we chose to. However, that is the end of our show for this evening. We've got all our negativity out, we've got all our moaning, and we've got all of our worries about the weekend out as well. We will be back next week to react to what happens in the League Cup final, and hopefully it's all with smiles on our faces. In fact, we might even be back after 2 games, because we have a midweek against Dundee United on Wednesday night. So we might have we could be either way. It could be absolutely terrible. It could be fantastic. Kieran, thank you for coming on, mate. I appreciate you being here on a Friday night. Any final words?
Just win on Sunday.
Simply put, love it. Calum, as well, thank you, mate, for coming on Friday night. The same as Kieran, I love you a chance. Any final words?
To quote a fan base that Nancy might be more on City to fight and win.
Fight and win. That's it. Fight and win. Lads, cheers. Thank you to everybody listening on Spotify or YouTube. Make sure to rate the show 5 stars, like and subscribe, all that good stuff. We'll see you next week. And win the cup, Sellik. Please. We'll see you next time. Right.